Welcome to today's deep dive. I will be your host, and today we are looking at a really fascinating manuscript called Stranger with a Document. And joining me to unpack all this is our resident expert on labor market dynamics.
Hey, thanks for having me. I am so ready to dive into this one because it really hits home for a lot of people.
It really does. I mean, have you ever felt like you're standing at the edge of a massive dark canyon, just shouting your greatest life accomplishments into the void?
Oh, absolutely. Like every time you apply for a job.
Right. You spend hours agonizing over every single word of a cover letter. You hit submit on that application and then absolute silence. You wait weeks only to get, an automated no reply rejection email at 2:1 scene in the morning.
Yeah, and the psychological toll of that is just staggering. Millions of professionals are trapped in that cycle every single day. You offer the machinery of the modern labor market, the real verifiable evidence of your life's work, and, well, the machinery just swallows it without a trace.
Which is exactly why we're doing this deep dive. Our mission today is to decode the structural reasons why this hiring system feels so irreparably broken. And more importantly, how you, the person listening to this right now, can actually navigate it.
Because the manuscript suggests a massive pivot, right? It says we need to abandon this blind obsession with optimizing a resume and adopt a framework called operational career intelligence.
Which means completely reframing how we view the job hunt. Because what this manuscript argues is that the feeling of alienation, that whole screaming into a void thing, it's not a personal failing.
No, not at all. It is a massive structural failure. It's the gap between how professional identity is processed by algorithms and how it's actually interpreted by human beings.
And the author's own background really highlights how absurd this gap is. I mean, we're talking about someone who should be the most employable person imaginable. 33 years as a senior Army logistics officer.
Yeah.
He has combat deployments, corporate sales experience, even a healthcare AI internship. But when he transitioned into the civilian job market, he hit the exact same wall of silence.
Yeah, to figure out a way around that wall, we really have to examine the void itself. Like, why is it so quiet out there? The author identifies this as interpretive strain.
Interpretive strain, what does that actually look like in practice?
Well, the current labor market functions as a high-speed sorting machine. It processes applicants infinitely faster than it can actually interpret their value. So those massive applicant tracking systems, the ATS platforms we all dread, they're just inundated with data.
So they're just pushing paper, basically.
Exactly. And the crucial distinction here is that movement through a database is not meaning. Being parsed efficiently by an algorithm has absolutely nothing to do with being understood by a hiring organization.
And because you get zero feedback from this faceless system, human nature just takes over. You start filling that silence with relentless self-accusation.
Oh, completely.
You wonder, am I too old? Are my salary requirements too high? Is my background just too weird? You end up doing the system's dirty work by disqualifying yourself in your own mind.
Yeah, the system is basically designed to withhold a response just long enough for you to turn the blame inward. And we have substantial data proving this is a systemic crisis.
Yeah.
Recent industry reports paint a very bleak picture. Candidate ghosting, automated bots, screening out qualified people, and sheer applicant burnout. That's what's dictating the terms of the market right now.
It's so demoralizing.
It is. And the architecture of these systems is almost insulting. It borrows this polite tone, sending messages like, we carefully reviewed your qualifications while structurally withholding any actual human consideration.
I kept comparing the modern ATS to a highly pedantic nightclub bouncer.
Okay, I like that.
Right. Like this bouncer is totally obsessed with checking the exact font and formatting of your ID, making sure the barcode scans flawlessly, checking your shoes, but he has absolutely no idea if you're actually a fun person to let into the party.
Right, the bouncer's just checking boxes.
Exactly.
And just like that bouncer, the ATS is optimizing exclusively for processing speed, not for party quality. And when applicants figure out that the bouncer is just a machine checking formats, well, their behavior changes. They adapt.
They try to out-optimize the machine.
Precisely. And in the current landscape, that adaptation almost exclusively involves generative AI, which introduces an entirely new compounding failure into the market.
Because if the bouncer only cares about formatting, it makes perfect logical sense to use AI to write your resume. It's a natural defense mechanism against this opaque, overwhelmed system.
It is, but the manuscript points out a fatal flaw here. When everyone uses the exact same technology to sound flawless, trust just vanishes. If everyone sounds perfect, nobody is believed.
So we become, what do they call it, signal rich but trust poor.
Exactly. We are drowning in this mathematically perfect professional language, but we are starving for actual credibility. Recent workforce trends show an unprecedented explosion of AI adoption in job hunting. But research into the psychology of this, like a recent academic paper on AI in recruiting, shows it backfires.
They call it the misperceptions of agency, right?
Right. Candidates think they're taking back control. They believe the AI is giving them power by making them sound hyper-professional. But the reality is the exact opposite.
The AI is actually stripping away their unique voice. It's erasing the messy, complicated friction of actual human work.
Yeah, it converts genuine human effort into what the manuscript labels corporate vapor.
Corporate vapor. I love that term because we end up generating these phrases we see on every single LinkedIn profile, like strategic cross-functional leader driving synergistic outcomes.
Right, algorithmically, that is a perfect sentence.
Yeah.
Humanly, it is completely devoid of meaning.
It means nothing.
And employers are acutely aware of this emptiness. Major AI companies have even put out guidance for employers on this. The core issue isn't that a candidate used an AI tool to help draft a document.
Sure, everyone uses spell check.
Right. The threat is whether the final signal presented by the candidate is actually grounded in reality. The hiring manager looks at that corporate vapor and wonders, well, can this person actually stand behind the claim? Or did the AI just hallucinate a competency they don't even possess?
So we arrive at this totally absurd standoff. Employers are using AI to write the job descriptions, and applicants are using AI to write the resumes. We're basically watching two robots aggressively agree with each other, while the actual humans are left waiting outside.
It's exactly that.
The employer's AI says, we need a proactive self-starter to drive cross-functional excellence. And the candidate's AI replies, I am a proactive self-starter driving cross-functional excellence. On paper, it's a 100% match.
But the trust level is zero. The hiring manager gets that perfectly matched resume and immediately suspects it was generated by a prompt. Because they can't verify the human element, they heavily discount the claim. The AI polish actively destroys the trust it was supposed to build.
So the ultimate question for you, the listener, is how do you rebuild that trust? If AI polishes a trap, how do you prove you're real?
Well, the manuscript provides a really practical two-part framework for this operational texture and trust density.
Let's break those down. Operational texture is fascinating because it demands that we put the friction back into our claims, right?
Yes. We have to replace those generic, vaporous nouns with the actual constraints, trade-offs, and consequences of the work we did. The formula is condition plus action plus consequence.
Okay, so what does that look like?
So the corporate vapor version is something like thrives in a fast-paced environment. It's a floating claim with no anchor. The operational texture version applies that formula. So you'd say redesigned a weekly handoff process when repeated delays across 3 time zones were causing preventable rework.
Wow, yeah. The second person is infinitely more believable. It's the difference between just stating, I'm a great chef, and stating, I successfully ran a diner kitchen during a Sunday brunch rush when the industrial dishwasher was broken.
That's a great analogy.
One is a hollow claim, but the other is undeniable proof that you can survive the fire because the broken dishwasher is the constraint. It's the friction.
Exactly. Human beings instinctively scan for friction to determine if a story is authentic. If a resume sounds too frictionless, too easy, our brains automatically assume a machine wrote it.
But texturing a claim only solves half the problem, right? Even a beautifully textured claim is still just a stranger making a claim on a piece of paper.
Right, the hiring manager still doesn't actually know you. So you have to bridge the gap between a good piece of paper and actual human belief. And the manuscript calls this bridging process trust density.
Trust density.
A claim needs reinforcing signals to become dense with trust. A bullet point on a resume needs an underlying story you can deliver in an interview.
And that story needs a reference who can verify it actually happened.
Yes, and that reference needs an artifact like a portfolio piece or a hard metric to anchor the memory. The more reinforcing signals you attach to a specific claim, the denser the trust becomes.
And the manuscript connects this directly to networking, but it strips away the sleazy transactional vibes we usually associate with that word.
It does. To understand how trust actually moves through these complex hiring systems, we can look at classic sociology research on social networks. It turns out weak ties are incredibly powerful.
I've always found that counterintuitive. You would assume your closest friends, your strong ties, would be the most helpful in finding a job.
You'd think so, but your strong ties generally know the same people and have access to the same information that you do. It's the weak ties, the former colleague from 3 years ago, or a vendor you collaborated with on a single project who operate in entirely different social and professional
They
circles.
act as bridges.
Exactly. They carry your signal into rooms you cannot access. So networking isn't about sleazy self-promotion. Structurally speaking, it is trust compression.
Trust compression. I
Right.
love that. When an internal employee hands your resume to a hiring manager and says, hey, I worked with this person, they are exactly what we need, they are effectively compressing years of trust they've already built with that manager and just physically stapling it to your document.
Right. You bypass the low-trust formal channel of the APS portal entirely. You stick the bouncer because you have a witness.
But getting that sponsor and getting your evidence in front of them, that introduces a huge tightrope walk. The manuscript calls the resume a translation artifact, right? You're forced to pitch this document to a machine and a human being simultaneously.
It is the defining challenge of the modern job search. We have to understand the opposing forces here. The back-end ATS systems rely heavily on strictly structured data. The parsers are looking for standardized dates, recognizable job titles, industry keywords.
So if you lack that structured data, the robotic librarian can't categorize you, and you cease to exist in the database.
Exactly. But if you over-index on structured data, you alienate the human. Research out of top business schools highlights how human evaluators are just suffering from extreme fatigue regarding proxy credentials.
They don't just want to see a degree or a standardized job title.
No, they are desperately searching for actual skills and real-world context. They need to know what you can actually execute on a Tuesday afternoon.
So you're asking listeners to write a document that functions as this compelling, friction-filled narrative for the human, while the metadata is perfectly coded for a robot. That sounds like a recipe for a mental breakdown. How do we not lose our minds doing both?
Well, the solution proposed is a workshop framework called Operational Career Intelligence, or OCI. It's the rigorous discipline of governing your own professional evidence. To successfully translate your value, you must govern every claim by asking 3 ruthless questions. Is it true? Is it relevant? And is it interpretable?
Let's drill down into that last one. Is it interpretable? Because the author warns against 2 specific translation traps: under-translation and over-translation.
Right. Under-translation is particularly common for career changers or military veterans. They use way too much internal niche jargon, like the author uses his own military experience writing operations orders or opioids.
So if a veteran puts Rote Brigade OPRDs on a civilian resume,
The parser has no category for it, and the human manager has no frame of reference. The signal just dies on the page.
but the pendulum swing in the other direction is over-translation, which brings us right back to the AI corporate vapor.
Exactly. You strip away all the unique context and friction until the bullet point just reads Strategic Operations Executive. You fed the machine the keywords it wants, but you entirely erased your human identity.
So OCI forces you to find the middle ground. You translate the jargon into verifiable mechanics. So Brigade Opioids becomes translated complex operational requirements into executable plans for distributed teams.
Yes. It retains the key words for the algorithm-like operational requirements, distributed teams, while preserving the human texture of translating complexity into action. You provide the data structure for the machine and the operational friction for the human.
Listen, I'm hearing all of this, and I'm thinking about the listener who is working a 50-hour week, managing a family, and just trying to keep their head above water. The idea of meticulously governing every claim, texturing every bullet point, and managing trust density, it sounds exhausting. It sounds like just another more complicated form of optimization.
That is a completely valid reaction, and it is precisely why the manuscript introduces its most vital paradigm shift. The resume is not your career. The resume is merely a temporary rendered interface.
It's a disposable snapshot.
Exactly, generated for a specific moment in time. To prevent the exhaustion you're describing, you have to build something permanent beneath the resume, a structure the manuscript calls the living professional record.
We really need to break down this living professional record because it seems to be the only way to preserve your sanity in this system.
Think of it in terms of a longitudinal health record. When a patient visits a new doctor, their medical history doesn't start over from zero, right? The history, the test results, the baselines, they travel with the patient.
But most professionals let their identity start over from scratch every single time they apply for a new role.
because they rely on what the author calls a career archive.
Oh, a messy, chaotic folder on a hard drive filled with old performance reviews, half-remembered notes, and outdated PDFs. I think most of us are guilty of relying on a career archive.
It's the default state for most of us. But the living professional record forces you to organize that chaos into 6 intentional, governable layers.
Let's walk through those layers. So the first layer is claims. This is simply stating what you can do.
Correct, your core competencies. The second layer is evidence, which provides the proof of those claims.
Wait, I want to clarify the distinction between evidence and the third layer, which is artifacts. How do those differ in practice?
So evidence is the measurable outcome, or the metric. For example, I reduced client onboarding time by 30%. The artifact is the physical or digital proof of that evidence.
No.
It's the sanitized onboarding schedule you created or the dashboard screenshot you can actually present in a portfolio to prove the 30% reduction happened.
That makes perfect sense. The artifact anchors the evidence, and the fourth layer is witnesses.
The specific human beings, former managers, colleagues, clients who were present when you created the artifact and achieved the evidence, they can verify the friction of the work.
The fifth layer is the narrative, which is the thematic through line that connects all these disparate projects into a cohesive career story. And finally, the sixth layer is the rendering.
The rendering is the resume. It's the LinkedIn profile. It's the specific temporary document you generate from the first 5 layers to hand to a specific audience. The resume is just the tip of the iceberg.
What I find incredibly liberating about this structure is how it categorizes the claims layer. You separate your claims into established, emerging, and aspirational. You don't have to pretend you are a master of everything on every rendering.
No, not at all. You can have established evidence in B2B sales, emerging evidence in data analysis from a recent project, and aspirational goals for team leadership. It removes the pressure to falsify your expertise.
And this leads to a really critical point about when this governance must happen. You have to build and maintain this living professional record while you are safely employed.
Yes, because if you wait until you are laid off, desperate, and staring at a blank screen while the financial clock is ticking, the panic sets in.
And doing it under stress is exactly what leads to that frantic AI optimization we discussed earlier. You start mashing buttons on a prompt generator because you haven't governed a record to draw from.
You revert to generating corporate vapor out of sheer survival instinct. But if you take the time to build this living record proactively, you carry your continuity with you. You dictate the narrative of your career, rather than allowing a fatigued recruiter or a parsing algorithm to guess it based on formatting.
You take the power back from the black box. You transition from being blindly optimized to being strategically oriented.
Exactly.
So, let's recap the core journey we've taken today. The modern job hunt feels intensely personal and demoralizing when you get ghosted, but it is actually a structural failure of signal and trust. The processing systems are just overwhelmed.
Right.
But by rejecting the empty polish of AI, injecting operational texture back into your claims, remember the broken dishwasher, and meticulously building a living professional record, you regain control over how you are interpreted by both the machine and the human.
You cease to be a stranger with a document. And, looking at the trajectory of these technologies leaves us with a highly provocative concept to consider.
Oh, what's that?
As artificial intelligence becomes increasingly adept at verifying our actual work outputs, cross-referencing our artifacts, and analyzing our digital footprints, are we approaching a future where the self-written resume becomes entirely obsolete?
Wow, like a completely frictionless verification system.
Exactly. Will tomorrow's job application simply consist of granting an employer temporary governed access to your verified living professional record? Instead of trying to translate your worth onto a 2-page PDF, you simply hand them a secure cryptographic key to your evidence layer.
That fundamentally alters the entire dynamic of professional identity. I mean, you aren't shouting your accomplishments into a dark canyon anymore, desperately hoping for an automated echo at 2.17 in the morning.
No, you are simply opening a door, presenting the verifiable proof, and allowing the work to speak for itself.
It forces us to move beyond claims and rely entirely on governed truth. What an absolutely vital shift in perspective and a framework we all need to start building immediately. That gives us plenty of work to do on our own records. Until next time, keep digging deeper.